What's up Miracle Fighters, I'm Peter and welcome back to the channel. Today's video will be the first deck profile for 2021 and as you already know from the title, it will be for Roxy's Genesis deck. Roxy has been a Genesis main ever since the clan came out way back in Breakwright era and she has played pretty much every variation of the clan before the reboot happened. Her two main decks before it, back in G, were the Regalia's Minerva deck using Almighty Regalia over here. For a while it was Earther, and the other one was Fenrir Revelation over here. Is it Fenrir Revelation? Oh, yeah, it's Fenrir. Okay.
Yeah, so I also tried my hands on Amaruda, but due to money constraints, I didn't build the deck in real life. However, when the reboot happened, I felt that the playstyle of Genesis changed. So my personal playstyle also changed because I started picking out a lot of SL decks instead. So I spent more time playing new decks like Murakumo, Nova Grapplers, and Echo Force was a clan I already played back in the old era. So I didn't really want to take out Astro Poets because I didn't really like the aesthetic, and so I kind of dropped Genesis. However, that changed when VBT12 was announced. So one of the first few cards we knew from that set was Eradicator Dragonic Descendant, which by the way was Max's boss from way back in the past. So anyways, when we saw that, Peter and I started considering the possibilities of Regalias and Liberators coming back to Standard. So I'll say Liberators because Peter is a big fan of Liberators, especially Bluish Flames.
Yes.
And when CEO Yggdrasil and Norn were confirmed, they kept their original Regalia names, and so that's how I knew I'll be picking up Genesis back again.
That's right.
Although these two cards have changed considerably from their original form, they still kept the flavor of their Legion history, as we'll see once we get into the deck. So now before I start showing the cards, just a bit of a background about the deck. So there are two main ways you can build this deck, which is either the Divine Gauge focused variant using Artemis cards, or you can build the Himiko variant, which is the one I'm currently showing off. So it's the one that I find to be strongest and more consistent. So let's first start it off with grade 3s. So very simple, just 4 of each grade 3, 4 Oracle Queen Himiko, and 4 Cosmic Regalia CEO Yggdrasil. Himiko came way back in the very first set of Standard that featured Genesis, and she has aged quite well. Her ability is simple but powerful, which is just activated Soul Blast 5, put a crit or a draw to the bottom of the deck, and just activate that trigger effect as many times as your opponent's Vanguard's grade. So if you go first, you activate it twice. If you go second, you activate it 3 times. So since it's a trigger effect, you can split the power and the crit as you see, or just stack everything to 1 unit. So it's quite a fair and evenly costed effect that has only gotten stronger with every set release for Genesis. So first we had Soadela to make this effect almost free, then Braw Antler Dragon to sort of double this effect to itself. So now we have CEO Yggdrasil. So Himiko's trigger activating ability means that we actually want to soul charge triggers, especially crits or draws. So with how this deck is played, crits are the main goal. Now speaking of CEO Yggdrasil, she has 2 effects. The first one is a V/R effect, in which she gives all rear guards with Divine Gauge the ability to boost. Then, if she's on the Vanguard circle, those cards cannot be affected by opponent's cards, which includes Retire, Bind, Bounce, Cradle Markers, or even Lock, which is coming back in Standard due to the return of Star Vader Chaos Breaker Dragon. So it's a better field protection compared to the grade 3 Artemis, and can come in handy if you ride her and are up against a field control deck. So this skill will be very important later on as well. Her second effect is one that can activate on both V and R as well, and it's once per turn. You may canvas 1, switch your deck for Regalia of Fate, Norn, and Superior Call It, which is pretty much a reference to them once being in Legion. So not only does it tutor out Norn, which is one of the key cards in the deck to get off a double Yggdrasil attack, It also allows you to gauge any of your rear guards, allowing even grade 2s or grade 3s to boost. This card also enables Norn to boost herself, which is a key play for this deck. Speaking of Norn, we play 4 copies of CEO Yggdrasil's mate, the Regalia of Fate, Norn. Norn is probably the best grade 2 in the deck. She has 2 effects. The first one is counterblast 1, draw, then put a divine gauge for one of your rear guards, and if you gauged, soul charge 2. So this ability not only provides you a card in hand to dig for your pieces even more, or to discard for double attack with Yggdrasil, but also adds a soul and replenishes your gauge, which you will understand its importance when we talk about her second skill. Norn's second skill is on rearguard only. At the end of the battle, she boosted a Regalia. You may discard a card from your hand and discard one of her divine gauges. If you do, stand the unit that she boosted and give that unit plus 10,000 power minus 1 drive. This skill is what allows the deck to make an OTK and is part of your winning turn. The Resent skill is so cheap for what it's actually worth, costing only a discard and a divine gauge, which Norn pays for it herself with her first skill. So depending on how you use this skill, you can either restand a rearguard or a vanguard, making this skill very versatile. Overall, Norn is just a fantastic addition to the deck and is a staple at 4. The next grade 2 I play is one from the same set as Yggdrasil and Norn, which is the White Phosphorus Sorcerer Revoluta. His effect is, when it's placed on rearguard, counterblast 1, look at top 3, you add 1 to hand and the rest to the soul. So it's a very solid card that can fit your soul and your hand by selective soul charging as well as selective drawing. As mentioned, you want to soul charge your critical triggers pretty much every game as soon as possible, so we are going to be playing a lot of selective soul charges to ensure that. Revoluta's effect also pluses, which is nice. And for the last grade 2, I'll be playing a card that came out in the Cinnamon Trial deck,
Prometheus of the Dancing Lights.
His first effect is an on-place effect to look at the top 2 cards, add 1 to soul and the other one to the top. Once again, this is a selective soul charge and can also predetermine your drive check and allow you to consider whether you should continue soul charging with other cards. Also, his effect is pretty much Hellsky Mythical Beast Fenris GB2 Revelations effect from G era if you noticed. Anyways, he also has a second effect, which is on attack, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, itself and your Vanguard gets 5,000 until end of turn. So free power-ups is great and can help make your Vanguard more threatening. If your Vanguard is Yggdrasil, you can also restand with the added 5,000 power and make use of it twice since the power-up lasts till the end of the turn. So that's it for grade 2s. We're moving on to the grade 1s. So for the first grade 1, it will be Communist. He has 2 effects. First is a Vanguard only effect. On place a card into a soul from your hand and draw a card. So you can immediately add a critical trigger into the soul to set up Himiko. Otherwise, it's also an early game filter, which is okay. Would have definitely preferred if his ability was to draw before soul charging, but it's kind of the same as Edge in the Darkness, so it's not too much of a big deal. His second effect is when placed on rearguard, soul charge 1. Then if my Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, I can soul charge another time and give my Vanguard 5,000 power. Essentially most of the time, it soul charges 2, and again, free power ups to the Vanguard is great. We also play 3 copies of White Brush Witch Arctic. Although this card is a Japanese only promo for now, it will be January's, which is this month's shop tournament card, and also be reprinted in clan selection, so you English players will still be able to play this card. Anyways, her effect is on place, 1 to soul and the other one to the top of the deck, the same as Prometheus of Dancing Lights, And on Regalia Circle, when my grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacks, itself and the Vanguard gets 5000 power until end of turn. She's pretty much a grade 1 version of Prometheus, and it's really good once again for free power and selective soul charge. Our last grade 1 are basically the mythic beasts, 4 Hati and 2 Skull. So Hati's on place effect is soul charge 2, and if you soul blasted for cost of cards this turn, it gets 5000 power. So it's easy soul turbo to allow you to reach the 5 soul blast cost of Himiko and an easy 13k booster. Similarly, Skull also get 5000 power if you soul blasted for your cards cost this turn. Additionally, Skull is also the grade 3 searcher, so I currently only have space for 2, but it's working out for me. In this deck, your grade 3s are super important, so you have to play at least a few Skulls to try and get them out. So this basically rounds up the grade 1s. Just like the grade 2s, they pretty much are all utility cards that provide soul for grade 3s or power up your Vanguard, be it Himiko or Yggdrasil. For our triggers, I'm playing the basic lineup of 8 crits, 4 draws, which are the PGs, and 4 heals. So this is probably the most solid lineup for the deck, since you want to have crits in the soul. If you are focusing on Himiko's 1-turn kill, you'll increase the chances of getting a crit trigger being soul charged over the other triggers by playing 8 crits. I've seen players playing 12 crits as well, and since the deck plays as a first grade 3 turn OTK, so I get that kind of playstyle. Although I personally feel that I still need draws to try and draw into my pieces and recover from early rush from my opponents. In more grindy matchups, draws can also be used with Himiko's effect to allow for drawing of 3 cards. Although I don't usually go for this route since Standard is so much faster paced now, it's still an option, so I'm still playing draws in the deck. With that said, that's basically the end of the main deck. Let's move on to the alternatives. As for the alternatives, for the grade 3s, there's this card called Spiritualist Sorcerer Croat. He's a giftless grade 3 whose effect is on place. You can soul charge 1 for each of your units. So if you're full board, he can essentially soul charge 6, which immediately makes Himiko live. And since it's a massive soul charge, the chances of soul charging a critical trigger is also quite high. It's a good card that used to be kind of important for Himiko, but now I feel it's not really needed with all the other soul charges in the deck. For the grade 2s, one card that I see quite a few Himiko players play is Strongbow of Starry Nights Ulysses. His skill is to go into the soul at the end of the battle he attacks a Vanguard to draw a card and soul charge 1. It's a nice card that can clear himself off the field when up against field control decks, but not really needed, and I prefer the selective soul charge of the other grade 2s I play in the deck. Another option you guys can consider is Venus Witch Rappler. She's a new Japanese promo that has no stated English release yet, but she's a pretty neat card for the deck if you get it in English. On place on Rearguard, you can soul charge a card from your drop zone. This is a kind of selective soul charge that I like, as it allows me to basically set up for Himiko's triple critical play by putting a critical unit that I use for guarding or soul blasted the previous turn into the soul. She also has a second effect, which is when she attacks and your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can counterblast 1, choose one of your units, and Rappler itself will then get the power and critical of the trigger effects that the chosen unit had gotten that turn. So since Himiko's ability is considered activating a trigger effect, this ability allows you to reapply Himiko's effect onto herself for just 1 counterblast. She's a much better Brawl and Slayer Dragon in my opinion, and she makes the deck more deadlier than it is now. With her, you can apply all trigger effects from Himiko to Yggdrasil, then to herself, allowing you to have 2 little columns. I haven't had the time to try her out, but I will be once I get the chance to. As for grade 1s, one card I used to play is Battle Maiden Mihikaru Hime. She has an on-play skill to reduce the next time you soul blast by 3, so it's a pseudo soul charge 3. So initially I played her instead of Arctic, but after trying out Arctic, I felt that her ability isn't really needed because the fact that it's on place makes it quite restrictive, and it's better to have like the other soul chargers or which actually soul charge cards, because there's a higher chance of getting a critical trigger in soul. Yeah.
That way. Okay, now that Roxy has already gone through the deck profile, let me just show you guys the combos. Right, the very lethal combo that you can do with the Himiko Regalia deck. So basically, you have a field set up something like this. You're really soul charged. Now you have 5 soul, at least 5 soul, and a critical trigger in your soul, which is very easy, which you already put into a soul due to your grade 1s and grade 2s effects. So I think we should have a bit more soul, right? Because you want to give it equip gauges. So maybe assume that this turn you use Yggdrasil skill to superior call out Norn from your deck. So I'm not gonna put any cards in damage zone, but assuming we have some damage, of course. So Norn has at least 1 gauge, right? So this is what you can do, right? On the combo turn, on basically your first grade 3 turn, assuming you're going second, you can use Himiko's effect, Soul Blast 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then put a critical trigger to the bottom of the deck. I did not plan for that draw, but it just so happened it's such a draw trigger. But anyways, we put a critical trigger to the bottom of the deck, and because we're going second, our opponent's Vanguard is on grade 3. We can give plus 30,000 power and plus 3 crits. We could give it to any unit. So because I want to show the lethal combo, I'm just going to give it all to Yggdrasil. And this is what Roxy does usually as well. So 30k and plus 3 crits to Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil on its own is now 43k 4 crits because we got a force 2 when we wrote Himiko and we gave it to Yggdrasil. So what we can do is we can have this column attack with the boost. Norn has a divine gauge, right? They say equip gauge. I think it's divine gauge, not equip gauge. Sorry, but obviously with the touch Kaze version. But basically, this is in our hand. But basically we have this. So this is 10, 20, 30, 43, 53,000 4 crits. Since we're going second, we attacked first for our grade 1 turn. So assuming we dealt our opponent 1 damage each for each turn, so they should be at around 2 damage right now. And this being a 4 crit attack means that it's attacking for lethal already. And we are not done yet. Let's say your opponent PGs this, or maybe uses a ton of triggers to guard. We can use non-skill. Discard a card from our hand, and then discard an equip gauge. Restand CEO Yggdrasil. It gets plus 10,000 power, which makes up for the lack of boost now, and minus 1 drive, which is not relevant since it's on rearguard circle. And we can have her attack again for 53,000 for critical. If opponent doesn't have any PGs, this is a 1-shot hit. And if opponent has, that's great. Next turn you can just rinse and repeat, right? Depending on what you have in your hand and whether you can get another critical trigger into your soul. And even if you don't kill them, we still have 2 other attacks, so we can still check drive checks. Sometimes it's also good to attack your Vanguard first to any rear guards, and then after that attack with your CEO to the Vanguard. This way you can not only damage deny, but you can also give like trigger effects. For example, my Vanguard's Twin Drive just revealed a crit. You can also stack all the triggers to CEO, make CEO even more threatening. Right. So this is what happens if Himiko is the Vanguard. One other way you can play this deck is if Yggdrasil is the Vanguard, then you could still have the same formation, something like that. Of course, this will have to be here. You could give the Force 2 to your Vanguard. With Yggdrasil being the Vanguard, it's actually better if you give the Force 2 to the Vanguard. And maybe you have a ton of cards that can power up the Vanguard, for example Prometheuses and Arctics. If this is Arctic, also good as well. So this is also another way you can play the Himiko Yggdrasil deck, where you focus on restanding Vanguards basically. Some instances this is good because it gives your rear guards protection, right? So Yggdrasil can arguably be a better Vanguard if you're up against super field control decks. But basically this field is just another way you can play the deck. You can attack with the rear guards first. Sometimes actually not. Sometimes having Arctic not in the same column as Prometheus may be better, because each of their second effects trigger at different timings. So that's something to take note of as well. But have something like that can give 5k to a Vanguard. Can give 5k to a Vanguard. The Vanguard is now plus 20k, it's 33k on zone. 33k, 43k, and then you can use non-skill again, discard a card from the hand, discard a quick gauge, and then restand the Vanguard this time. And it loses one drive, so for the first twin drive, draw, okay. For the second drive check, wow, great. I do not plan that, I shuffle this deck thoroughly. But yeah. So you can either go for a triple drive play with the restanding Vanguard, or you could just go for the threatening OTK with Himiko.
Okay, so actually it was 53k 5 crits, not 43k 4 crits if you're going second. So because you have your 3 trigger effects, 30k, and CEO plus Norn will be 23k. Sorry for that miscalculation. Peyton isn't that good at math, so we're adding this in. Even though we usually call this deck an OTK deck, it doesn't necessarily have to function as an OTK. It can also function as damage denial, because yeah, you have many crits. It's either they take the many crit attack or they don't get a Crown Blast.
Of course, there are other variants that can be built, like what Roxy said, the Artemis Divine Gauge focused build using the Artemis right chain, right? That can also be a pretty interesting build as well. But Himiko is overall just more consistent compared to Artemis. But of course, if you're going for a more budget build that doesn't use any VRs, then sure, go ahead. I think the Artemis focus variant is also very fun as well. It hits for higher overall board numbers as compared to Himiko, and has better board protection as well compared to Himiko. I think they also have board control of their own. I think it's the Grade 1 Artemis, I'm not sure. I will show the Artemis cards here. They also have a Grade 2 that can get power for each Divine Gauge. So that variant can also be a very fun and casual build to experiment with as well. But for now, Roxy is playing the Himiko Regalia variant for its simplicity and consistency. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the whole deck profile for the Regalia Genesis Himiko Regalia deck. Hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is probably one of Roxy's decks with the highest win rate as of now in Standard, and most likely her favorite as well. As for how I face off against the deck, well, generally I find that the best strategy is to just keep a perfect guard in your opening hand, or at least have one before she reaches her grade 3 turn, just in case she decides to go to do the 5 crit combo with Himiko and Yggdrasil. A perfect guard on her hand can definitely give you a chance to outlast the Genesis deck and potentially go for a kill on your next turn. So hope you guys enjoyed once again, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye guys.